It is the Anfield Wrap. It's Neil Atkinson, and I've got with me Grace Mailey, Ian Salmon, and Phil Blundell to take another look at Jarrel Quansah, see where we're up to. Nat Phillips has gone as well, but the breaking news is that Milos Kerkez is on his way in at the time of recording for a medical to play for Liverpool. I don't even think that any more sort of constitutes news, Phil. More progress towards something that has been inevitable for quite a long period of time. Milos Kerkez is without any shadow of a doubt Liverpool's first choice as a left-back signing this summer, and Liverpool are without any shadow of a doubt Milos Kerkez's first choice in terms of a club he wanted to move to, because I've looked at his social media.
Yeah, he's basically done a more extreme version of what Peter Odemwingie did when he just drove to QPR's training ground on deadline day. Like, he's done that times a million. Without actually turning up, he's basically just said, I want to play for Liverpool. I'm coming to Liverpool, I want to play for Liverpool. Fair play to him. It's I quite like the idea that he's that committed to the whole endeavour. And, he's only 21 as well, isn't he? Which is pretty handy in terms of having a long amount of time in him. He seems to be really enthused. He's international captain, plays for the club, so he's obviously being told about how good it is.
Yeah,
well, you assume anyway. He might not have. He might have told him it's rubbish, and he's like, "No, you're lying," but I'm coming anyway. Feels unlikely, but you never know. And it's good to just get the main target over the line, and it feels that the two main defensive areas that we were sort of thinking were needed at the start of the summer are now sorted, and it's not even July yet.
And that is sort of the beginning, middle and end of it for me, Grace. Liverpool can't act as though they haven't got the ones they wanted. If it doesn't work, then, well, you had free reign. Liverpool, from some distance out, wanted Kerkez. It seems that from some distance out, they wanted Frimpong. Frimpong's already through the door. Kerkez will follow, probably formally announced tomorrow.
Yeah, don't you think it's really exciting? I feel like in weeks gone by, when we've done Friday's show, we've gone on about how good Kerkez is. We've been like, he's a brilliant player. 5 assists last season. Yeah, all right, had quite like a few more. But that's not the end of the world. Like, if they've gone after it, they've wanted and they've got them, which we couldn't say in seasons gone by. It shows what we are as a club and what we've become, and the fact that we're league champions. We are a target for players like Kerkez to want to come and play for. You want to win leagues with us, you want to play with us. It's Bayern missed out on Wirtz because of us. So it's like, now we are this prospect, and we have been in years gone by, don't get me wrong, but under like Rodgers and stuff, there was obviously a time when players weren't really wanting to come and play for us, and now we're back on our pitch. We've become this team that everyone wants to come and play for, and Kerkez has done numbers for Bournemouth. He's been a great player, and we've said how good he's been, and I'm excited that what they've wanted, they've gone after, and hopefully it'll work.
Ian, I've watched left backs. I'm suspicious of them. But
I've watched many left backs over the last 50 years.
Bad, haven't they, at Liverpool?
Most of them are suspicious.
Yes, it's important to be suspicious of them because as a group, they're not a reliable cohort, is my view of the left back fraternity. But all of that said, I'll say again, it is the most important part of this. Liverpool have got no hiding places. They've got their man. Getting your man means that if it doesn't go well, people will say, well, what did you want him so much for? So Liverpool, they must have a plan to how they're going to make it work, and what they have got between Kerkez, Frimpong and Bradley, and I still think to an extent Robertson is an unbelievable amount of pace in full-back areas.
Yeah, I can't see any way that it doesn't work, because we're so data-driven, we do so much work.
You can't see any way it doesn't work. Can I refer you to all the left-backs who've ever played for Liverpool apart from 3?
But the majority of them didn't have data behind them. And that's,
I'll tell you what, he's done you there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
Our data lads are so bloody good at their jobs that they will have looked at everything. They're so sure, and the fact that there's been very little talk about other left backs or the right backs coming in, it's always been, we've known since about March, it's these two lads that we want, and we've gone out and we got them. And I can't remember a summer when we've ever done this. I think the nearest summer, the most obvious comparison is 87-88 when Kenny rebuilds the team. Speaking of, because I want to shoehorn this in somewhere, because I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, so I haven't had a chance to talk about this. I don't think people are excited enough about the Wirtz signing. I think they should be more excited than they actually are, because they keep comparing him to Fernando Torres, and he's not. He's John Barnes. This is a John Barnes signing. This is the biggest signing we've made since John Barnes. This is the best signing we've made in 30 years, genuinely, because we've never been in a position where we can take this kind of talent. And that goes for Frimpong and Kerkez as well, because these are the lads, in the way Vers was always going to Bayern or Real, Frimpong and Kerkez were going to City or Chelsea or Arsenal or Spurs. They'd have the lure of London coming for them in the way. Zubimendi has forgotten that mountains exist all of a sudden because he quite fancies living in London now. And we've gone out, we've got the lads we've wanted to, without any saga, without any hassle, without any stress, without any real challenge to us for these. We've gone out and got these lads. We've become, almost overnight on the back of winning the league, with a manager who a year ago people thought wouldn't be the same draw Jurgen Klopp was. We've become the most serious movers in the transfer market I've seen in a very, very long time.
There we are. Be more excited about Florian Wirtz, says Ian.
I think I personally struggle
to be more excited.
I think I'm quite excited. I think, I'm on your side to the point. I think people are quite excited generally. I'm not sure.
I think they need to put more effort in now.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, but again, it's just an exciting summer so far, isn't it? And then the mood music is that it's very much not finished, which is also even more exciting.
Let's move on to Quansah. Nat Phillips has left the club, so he won't be the replacement. And Quansah is off to Leverkusen. It looks, Phil, like a good deal all around. The buyback is good news from a Liverpool point of view. I'm sure they'll have set a fair price with Leverkusen. Leverkusen are getting a player that they feel as though is worth investing their energy in. So starting there, really, it's become a slightly odd Liverpool career for Quansah, but not a bad one. Leaves with 2 medals, which he's very much been part of the process of working towards. Part of what he offers last season was building the springboard for this season. I'm sure he would have liked more opportunities playing league football over the course of this campaign, but he's able to leave, I think, head held high, but also he now gets to go to a club who've paid a good substantial amount of money for him, and so not dissimilar to Kerkez, to Wirtz, to Frimpong. They need to invest the time and energy to make it work.
Yeah, is he their most expensive ever player? I think he
must be close to that. I thought,
off. And either way, that sort of tells you that it's good for him, it's good for us, it's good for probably for Leverkusen as well, as I feel. They've had a bit of upheaval this summer because obviously we've taken 2 of the players. Tar's gone to Bayern Munich. You presume that he's going to take Jonathan Tar's place.
Yeah,
they're not spending 35 million euros on a centre back to not play him. You would have thought so.
Managers moving on,
and that is a good thing for him. That is quite clearly a good thing for him because he needs. I think the thing he's needed most this season, the season just gone, was minutes. He starts that Ipswich game, and then I don't think he starts another league game until May. I think that's right.
At centre half.
I think at centre half.
Yeah. He gets a couple of shows at right back,
but there was no real big games for him, and he looked like he needed football. He stagnated a little bit in terms of what he looked like and what he looked capable of from the previous season, and this is a move where he's just going to get football, and I think that is exactly what he needs. And I just don't think we were in a position where we could give it to him. We're not in a position where we can just go, you can play 25 league games and that'll be good for everyone, because I'm not necessarily sure it would be good for everyone. We're just not in a developmental thing. We're a team that needs to be basically winning 27, 28 games a season. Maybe that's a bit high, but it's not that far off in terms of league games. So you just can't afford to blood someone in the way that they have a bit more patience in Germany with younger players, and I think that'll do him worlds of good, because I feel like people were getting on his back a bit excessively over the last couple of months. There was some games where he didn't finish games particularly brilliantly, and maybe that's just to do with the fact that he wasn't getting enough football, but there was a level of sloppiness that you didn't really want to see. But the raw materials were there, I thought. I think there were a lot of things, and it was a good position for him to improve as a footballer, but I don't see how he could have improved at Liverpool, and that's why it's probably a good move for all.
I think it is. I like transfers that you get to the end of it and you feel as though that this works for everybody. It works for the player. I think both clubs. It's a good amount of money from a Liverpool point of view. The buyback's obviously good, but it's not absolutely outrageous. Leverkusen are getting someone who, as Phil says, has got all the raw materials that you could possibly want. The player needs time, which he was just not going to get playing for Liverpool to become the player he needs to be. So I like those ones where you're just almost able to say, well, everyone's doing pretty well out of this.
Yeah, last season he looked like a lad who'd lost all confidence in himself. And I think it's partially the fact that he starts the season and he's in possession of the shirt. He's the first choice central defender, which is kind of what we expect to go into the season. And that situation lasts 45 minutes, and that's got to knock you a bit. And I know Arne came out afterwards and said it was because the whole team weren't functioning as they should have, and he needed to change the team round. But you've basically taken the blame from it, and it's going to knock you. So every time he was on the field after that, he looked like he was second guessing himself. Whereas the previous season, he looked like he could just play. He had no issues. Anything he was going to do, it was going to come off. There were no issues. This season, he just seen a terrible sentence, terrible phrase used, but he looked like he was at the scene of the crime so many times. If there was a mistake to be made, it would be his mistake. And it was things like the ball bouncing in. Andy Robbo plays the ball against him, it goes into the net, and you can't legislate for that kind of thing. But it just seemed these things started to happen to him. And once they start happening to you, they keep happening to you. So I think the move for him is brilliant because he's going to play at a very good level. He's going to play in a good league, but he's going to play in a league where he won't have the same, as Slot said last season, the team that's 16th isn't as strong as the team that's like 8th in England. So he's got more chance to develop his game. It's the game time he's going to need. And the price is fantastic. For a lad that didn't play last season, to get 30 million, possibly going to 35, is absolutely fantastic. As you said, everyone comes out this well because he doesn't look like he's failed at Liverpool, because he's got a really good move for possibly the most Leverkusen have ever spent. He's going to be a high-profile player there. He's replacing a good player. He's playing for a team that's won the league 2 seasons ago, who obviously now are getting more than a little bit decimated. And he's actually got the space to develop himself.
Was Jamie Carragher pre the academy?
Oh God, that's a really difficult question.
Because if he wasn't, he's probably the best centre back the academy's ever produced. Which I think
he was. He was pre the academy. Yeah.
So then that's something on his CV, isn't it? Sorry, Grace.
Just think about the fact that he's won 2 league titles and he's played alongside the likes of Van Dijk.
One league title and 1 League Cup.
Oh, did he not? Oh,
no, he was too young.
He was too young.
Oh my word, and that's mad because that's how long I feel like he's been with us for. Do you know what I mean? And I know last season the way everyone was blaming him, being like, the mistakes are down to him, but he has knocked his confidence last season, and before that, he was really growing and developing, playing alongside the likes of Van Dijk and Konate. Think about the amount he will have learned from playing alongside them and how much Leverkusen are going to benefit from that. I think is massive for him. It's a really exciting move. It's the prospect to get more league minutes, to play more games, to play in a different league. It's great for a young player to be able to go abroad and do all those things. So I'm really happy for him.
Grace is really happy for him, but it does give Liverpool a problem, Phil. I think it's understandable Liverpool have ended up in a situation now where they have a little bit of a problem. But I think the actual job of this piece of recruitment's a little bit difficult because you're buying for a centre-half who might find starts hard to come by for 12 months. I think that's a reasonable position, unless something is going to go on quickly with Konate. I sort of think in a number of ways Huijsen may well have been close to perfect, but he's gone to Real Madrid and Liverpool are where they are. Can't get everyone that you want all the way through. Gay strongly linked. Let's sort of start there. I'm surprised by the strength of links to Mark Gahey from Liverpool's point of view. He doesn't really look like a Liverpool style centre back. He spent 2 seasons playing his football in a 3. There's no
not
doubt,
even on the middle of the 3.
I'm not even in the middle of the 3.
If it was the middle of the 3, I think I could understand it more.
But left hand side of the 3. I am surprised. None of that is to say that he isn't a good player. He's an England international. He's getting selected there. He's clearly got pace on the turn. But Liverpool's central defensive options have tended to be on the more physical side. And if we go all the way back to Quansah getting hooked at half-time against Ipswich, the issue was he's not winning his duels.
Yeah, I was very confused by the link in terms of what style of player he is and what style of player Liverpool centre-backs generally are. Like, and when you say this, people seem to think it's that you think he's bad or something like that. I actually think if he could go to PSG or Real Madrid or Barcelona and be really good for those teams because they play in a league that is not like the Premier League, not in a, they get isolated centre-backs there, but they're not under aerial bombardment like Arthur are. Like, there's a reason that Konate and Van Dijk are really, really high up in sort of any aerial stats you look at. It's because they get the ball kicked at their head and they win a lot of headers. Now, that is something that is quite out of kilter with what Gay is used to doing. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. It just doesn't feel like I was very confused when it was so big of a link, to be perfectly honest. Emphatically reported
last week.
Like it was a fact, because not like, oh, Liverpool are considering this. It was like, no, Liverpool really like this person. I was very surprised by it. But again, as I'm saying, it's not because I think he's a bad player. It's just because stylistically he's nothing like Van Dijk. He's nothing like Konate. And I don't even think he's particularly similar to Quansah. Like, he's a little bit Joe Gomez, but I think Joe Gomez is probably a bit better in the air. We would look a very different side if we swapped Virgil van Dijk for Mark Gay when you think about what Van Dijk does, and that's why the whole thing just felt a bit weird to me. But we'll see. And it's ultimately, I think you just have to put your confidence in the hands of the people making the decision and hope that they know more than we do, which they probably should, in fairness.
Well, they will know more than we do, Phil, but there's one aspect that I do want to sort of push back on, because there's moving parts on this that are just beyond who you think the best player is. Liverpool will have one eye on the homegrown element. There is also, Liverpool have spent a lot of money so far in this window, and we know that they will go for a player, but there is also the idea that he's only got a year left as well in his deal. My minor sort of concern, and again, it's position specific. Like, for instance, I never had a problem with signing Minamino. It's an extreme different example, but he was on a release clause. There was the idea of you can go on and flip him and do something a little bit different. I never really had a problem with that at that point in Liverpool's trajectory. My little concern here is, just ever so slightly in the back of my mind, is it feels like one of those that's smart business but may not be smart Liverpool, and those things do happen from time to time at all football clubs.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes you make a decision, you think this is a good idea, and it just turns out to maybe not be the best idea.
And you create new parameters around the decision. That's not just who do. Yeah.
I mean, my sort of thing is, I don't really see how you pick a team with him in some respects that isn't a sort of League Cup third round team. I don't really see Liverpool going away to sort of Manchester City and me wanting to have him on the pitch over Konate, and I don't really see how you put him on this pitch instead of Van Dijk, and it's a £50 million transfer, and he wants games of football because he wants to play for England at the World Cup next year. It just doesn't, there's so much of it that just doesn't feel quite right to me, but that's almost why I think is more validly true, if that makes sense, because it's so specifically out of line with what we usually look for, that it's like someone's actually sat down, thought about it, and gone, well, no, we like this, and this is the reason why, and they will have the reasons why if it is that, and just have to hope it's all fine. I'm sure it probably will be.
I'm going to disagree. Yeah, I'm backing it. I think they've sat down, they've looked at Gay, they've looked at what he's done at Palace, they've looked at how he's played under Glasner, they've looked at the way he sits in that team, and they've thought, we need something different. And yeah, he's not going to replace Konate week in, week out. He's not going to replace Van Dijk week in, week out. But he is a very solid, say, third choice centre back who will step up when he's called on. He did that with England, and he's done that for Palace this season. Yeah, all right, he's going to want minutes because of the World Cup, but I think he'll get them, because if we're 5-on-4 fronts, we're going to need decent, solid players that can step up and play. I would argue he's more reliable than a Quansah, and I love Jarrel Quansah, and I'm made up that he's going to Leverkusen and he's going to have a ball. But I just think reliably, I understand the argument about the style of player, because he's not as physical as Van Dijk or Konate, but I think they've sat down, looked at it and gone, we need something different. He'll fit in here. We're not going to use him every game. It's a chance for us to maybe change tactics slightly, bring him on in a second half and shut up shop, maybe, if that's what honest. You never know what to think and do, yeah, but someone's obviously thought about it and gone, right, decent move, but also he's told Palace he wants to go, and if you've told your club you want to go and you're getting the opportunity to come and play for the league champions, then you're not going to turn that down, are you?
I'm in a weird position on this one. I think
Ian's on the fence.
No, I kind of agree with you both, but completely disagree with you both at the same time. I think this is one of those transfers where, because as you said, it's been so emphatically reported that there's a definite move here. But it's one of those transfers where, if this is a definite move, there's more going on that we don't know about Konate, because if you're Mark Gray, anywhere you move from Palace, you're going to be a starter. So are you going to come to Liverpool to be a third choice? You're 24 years old, you're England's first choice centre-back now. You are not coming to Liverpool to be a third choice or a bit part player who plays in third round FA Cups and League Cups and early rounds of Europe. You're coming in because you stake a claim to actually being Virgil van Dijk's partner. Now, I don't know how it's going to work with two left-footed centre-backs.
He's right-footed.
Oh, is he right-footed? I thought he was left.
No, he
plays
plays
left side.
He plays left side at centre-back in the 3, but he's right-footed.
That might be more balanced than I expected. This shows how much... I've watched him more with England than I have with Palace, and God knows I hardly ever watch England. But I've seen enough to know that he looks impressive, but stylistically I couldn't pin any particular style on him. He's not the strength and the blocking that Canate is, but he also doesn't have the injury record that Canate tends to accumulate across the season. If it is as strong as it seems to be, then for my money, he's coming in with the potential of being a starting centre-back, starting ahead of Canate, which possibly indicates that Canate might be on the moves. What we might actually be looking at is him and another younger centre-back, as has been speculated, and we're changing two centre-backs at the same time.
It could also be a real long game thing, and there's a Van Dijk succession plan involved, and he gets 2 years with Van Dijk, and then that's just his role. Like that is possible.
Unless the Van Dijk succession plan is Hato.
I don't want Konate to go, just for the record.
I'm not saying I want him to go.
Good.
I just think we're in that position where it's kind of like, if you're not going to sign, we sell you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I actually had that conversation yesterday with someone when I was talking about the back line and about, what happens if we do sign Gay and what does that mean for Konate. And I can't say who, but when I was having this conversation, they were like, yeah, and the likelihood is that if you're trying to sign a player like Mark Gay, then Konate could be on his way out. And I just don't want him to be.
Well, it makes Liverpool a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And this is the next phase of this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. So Frimpong is a remarkably small footballer. He's got loads and loads of qualities, but he's a remarkably small footballer.
Yeah.
And it isn't as though Trent Alexander-Arnold was some sort of aerial colossus, but he is markedly smaller. It's worth sort of putting that out. Kerkez is not a big lad and doesn't win his headers. And then genuinely, and people won't like this sort of thing, but Liverpool's best front post defender last season from set pieces was Darwin Núñez. He's almost certainly leaving.
I can't remember which game it was, but I think there was one game where he won 7 headers at the front post. It was fantastic.
Because it's a different thing, winning headers at the front post to winning flick-ons and doing the centre-forward stuff. Jota, we think, is likely to play a little bit less. He's quite good in the air, at least in general. And also, you are at least on the pitch from a starting position, replacing Szoboszlai with Florian Wirtz. And again, there's a substantial difference there. And I would say there will be exceptions to this, but small teams tend not to win the Premier League.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember having a conversation last summer where someone was like, oh, we should try and sign João Neves. And I just didn't really fancy the idea of Alexis McAllister and João Neves in the same midfield, despite the fact they're both fantastic footballers, because I just don't think that two people of that height can play together, and it does feel like
in this
league, and that's the thing. Like, it works for PSG because they don't play in this league, and they're a lot fresher in Europe and European football. The physicality and height is far less important. But in the Premier League, and it won't be the same at Brentford next year, although they are considering appointing the set piece coach. So maybe Brentford will be even worse for it next year.
Doubling down.
Yeah, they're going a step further, aren't they? So it might be that. But I wouldn't want to have watched that. I think the game just after the World Cup, where we went to Brentford and we lose 3-1. And it was like an aerial bombardment from set pieces. And I look at this team that we could potentially put together next season. I'm a bit like, don't really fancy that, like in terms of just what it has to offer. And I'm not talking about going and remodelling ourselves on Tony Pulis, who used to sign people with the aid of a tape measure. But it's something we do have to think about, because we are getting a little bit small.
Worth bearing in mind. Other players have been mentioned around. Nathan Collins got a mention. I think Van Hekke may move this summer. I think Van Hekke is a very, very good footballer. What he's like as a defender, slightly more up in the air. Lekeba at Leipzig. Diamande, who's actually being linked to replace Gahey at Crystal Palace, will possibly be in a Crystal Palace record signing, coming in there and doing that. He has outrageous numbers for the brutality of defending Diamande, and
how brutal are we talking?
He just basically wins all his headers, is impossible to get past, carries it forward, can't fucking pass.
I think that's a problem then, isn't it?
Yeah. But the other stuff's great. Yeah. I've just done the radar on him there, and it's lots of jagged edges and lots of.
Sadly, it goes beep when you get to the football.
Yeah, we get to the football. But I mean, Palace seem happy enough with that sort of player. If that's what they're doing to replace Gahey and going from there with it. Hato gets mentioned. He spent the whole of last season playing left back. He actually only did 2 90s or maybe 3 90s playing centre back, but is obviously potentially a really good player at the age of 19. Is there any other business for you? I mean, I've just mentioned some names there. there. Collins, to me, feels like he ticks a couple of the boxes. I quite like him. I thought he had a good season last season. He didn't have a good season his first season in Brentford, but he feels to me like the sort of player that might come on for playing with better players.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of... we talked about this on the Friday night, didn't we? And I read the comments. There were a lot of people not happy about Nathan Collins in the comments to that. Just like he was some kind of alien or something that people had took an immediate dislike to, which I was quite surprised. And there were a couple of Irish people who went, "I'm Irish," and he's crap, That's a rarity, and that concerned me.
It's not like them.
No, they very much back their lads. Fair play to them, but there were a couple of them saying Nathan Collins is not very good. And I've watched him. I disagree with that. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going back to what I said a minute or two ago. He's tall. He's 6'4". He wins headers, and I know it's a bit more complex than that, but there is something in him that I think was good. I think he was really good when he was at Wolves as well. I really liked him there. I think he only stays. Did he stay at Wolves for 1 year or 2? It wasn't very long either way. But he seemed to be good, and a lot of Wolves fans were like, "Why are we selling this lad? We should be keeping him, and in a couple of years we'll get much more money than they did for him." And they got a decent amount for him. I think it was about 25 million.
27, I think. Yeah.
There's something about him I quite like. Could end up completely wrong, but that would be my preference out of the sort of homegrown ones that we feel like we're being forced to by our own decision making.
There's one curious one for me at the moment. Nobody, and I'm not saying we should go in for him or would be able to buy him, because the selling team, if they were selling, would definitely not want it.
This is Branthwaite.
Suddenly, all the chatter around Branthwaite is gone.
I've got a long ball game on this,
Go on.
But
his contract expires the same summer as Virgil van Dijk. That's all I'm saying.
They have an option, I've heard.
They're trying to sign a new contract at the moment, aren't they?
Well, you've ruined me weekend there.
I'm sorry.
It's Monday and you've ruined me weekend.
No, I understand. I only found out about the option this weekend, that they've got an option. But these things I'm sure could be discussed. Branthwaite has gone quiet, and they're trying to get him to sign a new deal. I think he's going to be there for this summer at least, and then they'll move. They may well have to make a decision one way or another going into next summer, and I think they do so from a position of strength, even if he did only have a year left, given his entire sort of outlook. Though I think they could do having the talk back for the start of the season, the Blues, I think. But if you want a 45-minute discussion entirely about Everton's summer, we can arrange that. But I don't think the listeners definitely do. I can list you the players out of contract. My God, there's many of them, and whilst you move a lot of them on, someone's got to play footy for you.
But they need a rebuild, and he's one of their few saleable assets.
I'd take him.
You're singing myself. Well, so you take Branthwaite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just think he's solid.
I think he's a good player. He's good. I just don't quite see Everton Football Club.
They're not going to give us him now.
Acceding to Grace Mailey's request.
No,
on
this.
Not sure
It'd be nice.
I think he struggled to get him and Van Dijk on the pitch at the same time.
He's more two-footed than he's given credit for.
He's probably played left side all his life, though, isn't he?
He did some right side of PSV.
Did he?
Yeah,
okay,
lad told me,
enough.
And I'm just believing him.
Okay.
I'm also going Gay over Collins, just because I think Gay's more solid and slightly more reliable. I rate Collins as a player, but I'm not saying I was excited by either name, but I was more excited by Gay than I was by Collins.
Does anyone have any other business? Anyone else that they go for at centre back that's not been mooted, mentioned so far? No one. Romero.
Just bring me Ecuadorian fella from Bruges back.
Yep, plays left back as well, though, doesn't he?
No, he's right side.
Oh, right, okay, like him. Romero.
Too mad.
No.
Too mad?
Yeah.
Too mad.
Too much of a risk.
He also appears to like playing for Argentina way too much, and he'll just be like, "Oh, Argentina playing in a couple of weeks. I've got an injury. All right, just to protect myself for international football."
I suspect the injuries around Mickey Longlegs have undone him.
Yeah, his hamstrings are going to fall off.
Okay, I'm just sort of Sabani.
Going to PSG, isn't he?
Definitely.
Looks it, doesn't it?
Okay. I'm almost talking myself out of shouldn't have sold Quansah as we went on and work through the list here and see where we end up. I do wonder about whether or not Liverpool will have their eyes on someone who will look a little bit like Lenny Yoro. That might well emerge at some point over the next couple of weeks and go from there, see where they end up. Okay, from one end of the pitch to the other. Grace Mailey, why does no one want to buy Victor Osimhen?
Okay, so I've done my research, everyone, because I think he's a quality player and I quite like him. So I was like, well, what's the reasoning behind why he would never come here? Situation is, Napoli, he was injured quite frequently, to the point where it hampered his chances of staying there, and it was stressful for him. He doesn't sound like he had a very good time there at all. Then he goes to Galatasaray, becomes this absolute hero. They all absolutely love him. He could probably have free kebab there if he wanted it. He could have whatever he wanted, essentially. He initially said that he wanted to go to the Premier League. Obviously, more exciting prospects, something he's not done before. Like, why not do it? But the big issue is his demands on his wages. And at a time when clubs are trying to be a lot more careful with what they spend on wages, it's become quite hard for him to see a move to the Premier League because he doesn't think they'll match his wage expectations. And he's looking at Saudi, although Saudi have not come in for him recently. So
hasn't he just knocked back an offer?
Yeah, he's supposed to knock back a couple of offers from Saudi.
Yeah, but I don't think there's not one currently on the table. But that will be because of his wage demands, because what he wants is...
It's quite impressive having higher wage demands than Saudi Arabia will pay, yeah. It's quite impressive.
So you think it's
going nowhere?
So you think it's because this then becomes then theoretically he'll be going nowhere because so you think it's entirely because, let's be clear, he's got the release clause.
Yeah.
He's mid-20s. He's scored solid goals in each of the last 5 seasons. You think it's solely the wage question?
I think that's a massive, massive part of it. Because if you've turned down bids from Saudi in the past that have come in with high wage demands and you're still not happy, like, yeah, all right, he originally said he did want to come to the Premier League, but we're not going to match what Saudi have offered, are we? So then, does he come for less? Does he make a sacrifice and go, well, actually, I want to go to the Premier League winners, so I'm going to go anyway for less money? Like, I don't know. And I actually think he's a real quality player, and I would have him. So
there's one way he could come. There's a bit of a theory knocking around that when his contract expires next summer.
Yeah.
Right. So he's got 1 year left on his deal, and he wants to go to Juventus apparently, but De Laurentiis will not sell him to Juventus because he's mad, basically. So it's a bit like, well, what's he going to do for a year? Now, would you loan him for a year?
Yeah,
would you take him on loan for a year?
But if you're De Laurentiis, that's akin to just selling him, if you see what I mean.
But he'd get some money for that, and he wouldn't have to sell him within the... there's a real face-saving thing about selling to people in Italy sometimes. Like, there's a really strong rumour that is why we signed Chiesa, because he needed to get out, and they wouldn't let him go anywhere else in Italy, and they weren't bothered necessarily about the money. It's just sort of going to a rival club like Inter were trying to sign him quite aggressively last summer, and they just wouldn't let him go there. I think they offered more money than we did, and he just were like, no. So there is a sort of thing like that. I know it would possibly lead to him going there next summer anyway, but there is an argument that you take him on loan, then his contract expires, he does you for a year, and then you move on to another player on the list who, we'll come on to in a second, I suspect. Is
there not a similar argument, therefore, that Liverpool could, for instance, if you wanted to do conspiracy theory stuff, Liverpool could, for instance, pay the release and at the same time as pay the release, agree a fee with Juventus for next summer that happened to be around the release?
You could do that. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, I don't know from an accounting perspective if that would be
it gets Napoli, but it gets Napoli the money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The key question is Napoli get the money.
But we would have to have a win out of this, I imagine, and you don't know exactly how it works, but there'd have to be something. I mean, the only stumbling block with this theory is that he would be getting off for 6 weeks in a Mohamed Salah style around Christmas. That's the only problem with that. There's an element of it would be insanity to loan someone who can't be around for 6 weeks in the middle of the season. But there's something in that mad thing, because a lot's not adding up with Osimhen, generally speaking, and hasn't for a while. Like the fact that he ends up at Galatasaray in the first place was mad, because he went on loan. Now surely someone who isn't Galatasaray could have got him on loan somewhere along the line. So it feels like there's lots of questions that we could pose we don't know the answers to, and there's probably reasons that the answers exist.
It's I mean, I've looked at all his goals from this season this morning before I came in. I'm like, I want this lad to play for us. He looks smart.
He's great.
He's so good.
Really good.
Lots of pens, but when he hits a ball, he hits a ball. There's
it stays hit.
It stays hit for quite a long time. I think it's his second goal of the season where he scores this incredible overhead kick.
Yes.
It's just he's quality in the air. So two fast lads on the wings putting balls in for him in the air. All of a sudden, we look like we got a threat from a number 9, which would be an interesting experience to watch. Given that I think we should be our conversation 5 minutes ago, we should be reinventing our current number 9 as a central defender, because he can do back post stuff, and it'd be the only way to stop him going offside at any point.
But maybe play everyone on side, though. You didn't think about that, did you?
It's true, yeah. His understanding of the offside rule is random. I've heard Mo talk about him, about how good he is, and that the fact that the so-called problems he's had have been not of his making, and have been more circumstantial. And obviously, the whole thing with Napoli's social media accounts mocking him for missing a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely out of order.
So he clearly cannot go back to Napoli. Yes. That's not happening. So I'm banging to the theory of loaning him for a year and then selling him when we buy the next lad on the list. But I can't see how that works if he's going away for 6 weeks for AFCON. Yeah. So that seems a little unlikely. The fact that nobody's bought him so far, it makes you think, people talk to each other, don't they? So there's something that's stopping people buying him. Yeah. And that might not be the lad himself. Yeah, I think there's a comparison here to the Anelka situation that we had, where Anelka came in and he was incredible. He was amazing to watch, but there was so much alleged baggage from the people around him that we wouldn't sign him. So we signed El Hadji Diouf instead.
Given the lack of centre forwards at the minute, though, it is a real surprise that no one's been more aggressive. Even if there are like questions that he needs to answer, we want San Mario Balotelli. So surely at some point someone's going to go, well, yeah, we'll do it, and it might work, it might not, but ultimately, he's good, and some transfers are allowed to not work.
Yeah,
like I think that Balotelli one was allowed to not work just 'cause the simple fact that he cost nothing, and it was a bit of a gamble. I think Osimhen will cost a bit more, but it could be worth chancing and seeing what happened, to be honest.
And it could be, speaking naively and optimistically, he might just need the right place and the right set of fans to get behind him, and it could be that we are that place.
I think he's slightly undone by how appalling Manchester United are, and that it's very easy to say that in an attacking sense. City, Madrid, Munich, and Paris Saint-Germain are all boxed.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of is, it's a bit of a funny one, wherein there's a lot of teams who are saying that they want a centre forward, but they don't quite feel as though they want one at all costs, in a way in which has been the case in the past. And I think he feels, quite possibly because of the wage demands, feels it is very all or nothing. So I take it may cost a bit more points, but if, for instance, you're looking at a 4-year deal that immediately brings him in day one on 300 grand a week, then that is suddenly a huge
at that level. You have to be 100% certain it has to work.
And I think it might be that him / the people around him / both may well be 100% certain. Like, I think I am this good, and he's got a track record he can point at to say that he is that good. But there might be something that's just. But I am intrigued by it. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me either. All right, next one is the Alexander Isak noise won't stop. He was the next name on the list that both of you have just sort of referred to. Phil, you've tried to do this to me a couple of times in the past. We did an In Their Shoes show, and Chris Barber had a good go. If anyone has heard this as a subscriber, of arguing Newcastle should sell Isak, and he didn't have. He supports Chelsea. He didn't have a good go from a Liverpool point of view. He had a good go from his own point of view of sort of saying if they want to make the sort of changes that he thinks they should make to cement the Champions League position, Isak does free it up, but it just still didn't quite stick. As far as I'm concerned, not least because I think Newcastle have got one or two other saleable assets conceivably as well. I think the biggest Isak weirdness issue is that when he signs, and it should be a cautionary tale, he signs a 6-year deal, which means that right now he's done really well at Newcastle. There should be more pressure on Newcastle to do one thing with him or another, whereas as it is, I just keep coming back to the fact that for me, Newcastle hold, if not all the cards, most of the cards.
Yeah, the whole thing with him is going to be played on Newcastle's terms because of that contract, which when you sign for 60 million from Sociedad, you're sort of thinking, that I should probably commit to that, and you almost didn't think that Newcastle would be quite as sort of good as they are and consistently, win a trophy in the Champions League 2 out of 3 seasons and that sort of thing. But you do sort of look at it and think that it feels very Coutinho to me in terms of what they're able to do. Like, I know it is a bit of an ongoing joke that Liverpool is still spending the Coutinho money, but Liverpool are literally still spending the Coutinho money because it changed the entire shape of Liverpool as a football club. It's not just as simple as Liverpool used the Coutinho money to buy Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. What it did is that Liverpool bought Virgil van Dijk and Alisson and then increased how much money that comes into the club as a consequence of being really good at football by £100 million a year.
And it freed them up to also be able to buy other players at the same time.
And it meant they could buy other players at the same time, and they could go from being a team who had just got into the Champions League to being a team that, all right, with the exception of the season where we do miss out, a Champions League mainstay, competing at the top of the game. and that brings you money in, and that is what Newcastle should be trying to do. And I sort of feel like there is a level of pride sometimes where you feel like you can't do what can be construed as taking a step back to take maybe 3 forward, and it takes someone bold to make that decision. And I just don't know whether Newcastle have got that.
But my counter argument to this, Phil, is I take your. We'll come on to Newcastle's current structural thing in a minute. I think it is an interesting one. But Liverpool do Coutinho off the back of back-to-back Champions Leagues. So they're able to look at the situation that they find themselves in, because in the end they do Coutinho in January, is my point, and they can have a confidence they're going to qualify for Champions League. Yeah, to sell Coutinho.
Right, okay. So
they can have a confidence that they're going to. You can look at the league table at that point and have a genuine confidence of, we're going to be all right here. We've brought Salah in, so it's from a position of strength there. We can look at the 3. But they refuse to do Coutinho at the moment when a lot of the argument was, well, you've got to do him now when he's feigning the back injury. They hang on. They do then go on and get an even bigger offer for him, don't get me wrong, and I think there's definitely an element of that. But they are doing it, I think, from just a position of slight more certainty. They've also got Virgil lined up as well.
To a point, yes, but Liverpool haven't played a Champions League knockout game for 9 years when they saw Coutinho. Like, it's not like they were
that's fair.
Fully in the Champions League, and it could still have gone very wrong very easily. Like, we only, even in 2018, we do technically only qualify for the Champions League on the last day. So it's not like we were...
I think we don't win any of the last 4 league games, and we are in the final.
Yeah, but I think we beat Brighton on the last day, didn't we?
We did somewhat on the last day.
We beat Brighton 4-0 on the last day. Robertson scored, and I think Solanke scores as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think we did. We did win to conceal our place on the last day, but it was... We weren't.
We put our resources. We put our resources
close,
differently.
We were close anyway. But Liverpool weren't sort of what they are now, and sometimes you have to make a decision that is not what you want to make, but it's for the better of the club. And I think I realise it's a bit difficult to say that with Isaac, because I don't think they're going to sign players at the level of Van Dijk and Alisson. But at the same time, I'm not sure they're going to get back in the Champions League next year, just simply because I just don't think they've got the squad for it. Like, I look at the defence and I'm a bit like, well, your fullbacks are good, but you've basically got Lewis Hall and Livramento, and then what else is there? I mean, they've given Emil Kraft a new contract. Emil Kraft is not playing 20 games for Newcastle this season and ensuring they get in the Champions League. Centre-back, Sven Botman is permanently injured. Fabian Schär is injured quite a lot of the time as well. Is Jamal Lascelles still there? I think
Lascelles is out of contract this summer.
I'm missing one. There's one more I'm missing as well. Dan Burn as well. I just don't think I think they could probably do with 3 centre backs. Then you look at the midfield. The starting midfield is absolutely fantastic. Is there any depth? Not so much.
I like Mailey, and they've got to give Mailey a pathway.
I like these players, but a big part of how they play is their energy levels, and they can't just keep their energy levels up. Like, you watch Joelinton, you watch Bruno Guimaraes, they're about energy. You can't do that twice a week. The football twice a week. This is why I'm a bit annoyed we've got them when we have at the start of the season.
But again, I sort of take the point there, and I think it's really interesting. Everyone talks about the fact that they look like they have more energy than us for the League Cup final, but we ran all over them at Anfield, and it was only 2 weeks before. But it was as though because they were putting their energies towards that, whereas the league was a bigger deal for us.
But then there's Jacob Murphy, who's had a great season. He's not going to have that season again this season. Like, it's just physically impossible, because we know what kind of player he is. He's not 22-year-old who might suddenly have kicked up a level. He's only 30. There's loads of questions about that Newcastle side that if they want to kick on to the next level, they might have to do something that is a bit intolerable to them.
I just want them to do it to see what they do with the money. But I just think it's dead interesting. Like, they got new owners in, and their new owners chucked all kinds at them, literally through the kitchen sink at the club, and was like, right, let's make this team into something great. And they signed quality players to their level of quality, not ours, but like, they've got energy, they've won a League Cup, so to them it's like they're on the upward trajectory. They've got Champions League football, and the only way you sustain that Champions League football is by developing. So for them to sell Isak, they'd have money to then rework into other positions in their side, and I just think you have to do something a bit random to reap the rewards, like you said with the Coutinho stuff. It's like he's a quality player, Isak. I'd take him.
Well, we'd all take him.
Yeah, but I don't think... The other thing is, would they want to sell him to us? Like,
I don't think there's a team that they wouldn't want to, if the price is right for them.
Yeah.
But I sort of, where I disagree with Phil, that I feel as though their best way back into the Champions League is to ensure we've still got the fella who we feel as though can score 25 goals.
Well, that's why they're keeping hold of him.
But exactly, and that's the point. But Phil's argument, which is a really fair one in a few areas, is, well, they've got to sort this out, they've got to sort this out, they've got to sort this out. There's this area of the pitch. They've got to think about this. They've got to also...
Didn't you mention the goalkeeper, by the way?
Do well in the... Yeah, the current ones at least got some saleable value. I think you could get a lot of money out of Leeds for them, for instance. But you just see what I mean. So
yeah.
and that becomes the key question, really, is if you're them, that's what's in the balance here. And I think they've decided their mad amount of money, at least for now, is 150 million, which is a hugely high mad amount of money for any player.
No, when I first did that, I was like, wow, where have they plucked that up from? But they're going to do it if they want to keep hold of him and they know that people can't match it. So I think it's unlikely that they do sell him, but I'd like them to, because I want to see what happens.
I can't see any way to sell him. I think you do that, you've got a fan revolt on your hands straight away, because you've sold one of the best players you've ever had at the club in the modern era. You know, the lad who actually makes your team work. You've just sold him. I think the more saleable asset the more likely to be saleable asset that they have is Anthony Gordon, because they can replace him more easily without damaging the way they play. If they sell Isaac to anyone at all, then they are damaging themselves, probably irreparably.
I think there's another interesting one who doesn't get mentioned in these dispatches. Is it wouldn't surprise me if we get to August and someone goes a bit daft for Tonali. I don't think that's absolutely.
I don't see who though.
That's outrageous. I think
Spurs.
Maybe.
That feels like a step down at this point. Maybe.
I think Spurs feels like a step down, but maybe Madrid. I think someone might decide that he solves a problem that someone's got at the base of midfield. I think quietly he had an absolutely exceptional season last season, and everyone sort of looked the other way. In a variety of ways, Guimaraes grabs the eye and grabs the attention a lot more, whereas I think Tonali, and also he's an interesting age as well, someone might just go sick for Tonali, and if you are Newcastle, you could then say, okay, we remodel the midfield a little bit, Guimaraes goes back to deepest, we buy someone else to play right hand side, we've got Joe Linton.
And we've still got this lad up front.
We've still got the lad up front.
It's not the worst position for them to be in, ultimately, is it, to have these options that they can almost operate in the way they want to, which just means that someone's got to make a decision and it works and they'll be fine.
But you just pointed out they've got some structural issues as well.
Just got rid of it. Paul Mitchell?
Yeah.
They brought someone in?
Peggy's lad. So, not yet.
Honestly, I lost my track of things for a second then, and I was like, who've they brought in that could possibly be yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, there we go. It's one of them. It's what you've got to put up with. Just dead quick. Ekatiké's gone quiet. It might come again because around Chelsea, at least, because Nicholas Jackson may have gone mad. It's a live possibility. I've not seen any of the Club World Cup, not in any sort of grandiose way. It's just been quite inconvenient for me, and that situation is not going to change for the next week. But hearing in dispatches, Nicholas Jackson has got himself sent off again.
3 minutes after coming on.
Yeah, is
quite the tackle as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I've seen the clip. I've seen a clip of the tackle.
I really enjoy if that's the only thing you've seen in the Club World Cup.
Yes, that tackle. No, it is. That's literally
the only thing I've seen.
He's seen that tackle and the lunatic fella who turned up in a Boca Juniors shirt to a River Plate match.
I haven't even seen that. You have to send me that one, Phil.
Mad.
Phil, that's in my areas for this.
He's basically one man with about 1,000 people trying to get at him. There's a reason the away fans abandoned Argentina, is all I will say.
Honestly, wow. I can't quite believe that someone is trying to do that. Ekatike, Phil, I just can't quite see there being any movement on it at the moment. And I think maybe everyone's a bit smart on Frankfurt now. If the price is the price, then I think everyone might just sort of have to conclude, well, let's see what he's like in another year, and if the price is still the price, then he might have shown he's worth it.
Yeah, I think you might have to gamble with him as well. I think in terms of, you sort of go, all right, this is the price, but there's not many players available in that position at the top level, and he might be really good, and you might sort of slightly overpay. Like, for example, I think we're in a position where we can probably overpay for one player, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we can just go, well, McAllister should have cost more, and Frimpong should have cost more, McAllister should have cost more. We saved 30 million quid there, let's just drop the 30 million quid. I think there's a world where you can sort of potentially gamble if you see that as your way home, and it's the difference between maybe him and nobody. You can go either way on it, but you do have the wiggle room financially to go, okay, maybe we can take a chance here.
Any other business, any other centre forwards that anyone wants to throw into the hat just right now?
No, a bit concerned on the Ekatike one, because it is like there's hardly anybody out there, but it does feel very much sort of everyone's talking about the raw edges and the potential. He feels a bit Nunes. especially with his performance against his XG.
No.
You just don't need any more chaos, do we, really?
All right, I want to talk about a few more outs just to sort of sum up where Liverpool find themselves at the minute, Grace. The first time there was a little bit of noise last week around Jota. It may well be linked to the centre-forward conversation, and that if Liverpool get a number 9, Jota may well think, well, that could be my minutes massively undermined. If Liverpool don't, and even if they get another attacker in, Nunez goes out, another attacker comes in, Jota may well still think, well, there's time for me on the pitch here, I can get involved. But it was striking. It was supposedly because there was a little bit of concern about his minutes, World Cup stuff ahead. And it was also interesting all the link names with Premier League teams.
Yeah. It's a hard one with Jota. I think if we were to sign a number 9, then he goes, yeah, I'm not going to get the minutes that I want here, and I'm not going to get the game time, and I'm not going to get the goals that I want, all the opportunities, and then he might go, well, why am I sticking around? But I don't see a world where Jota leaves. I think it's a lot more likely that Nunez goes over Jota, but I think
Nunez will go, but
I can understand why Jota would look if we were to sign a number 9 or a forward and go, what are my chances here? Am I just going to be coming on off the bench? But then I think he's done enough to cement his place over a new player, depending on who that new player is. Like, you look at Jota's numbers, I think he's really underrated. I think there's so many other clubs that talk about our forward line and he just doesn't get a mention. Like, they mention everyone else before they get to him, and that's just because he does his business on the quiet, but he's quality player, and I would be sad if he went to another Premier League club, I can't lie.
He didn't come back great last season, but punctured lung is a fairly hard thing to come back from, I'd assume.
Quite famously.
Yeah, as injuries go, it feels like a bad one. I wouldn't,
There's a lot of things I'd choose to happen to me before that.
Yeah, ligament damage, anything like that. Something
I'll
gives
take
you
a pulled calf, maybe a torn hamstring over that, I think.
Punctured lung, bad one. No. And he's always been a player who, if he's not scoring, he's not doing a great deal else. Not to the Haaland level of not doing a great deal else and just being an entire passenger if he's not scoring, but he's not as involved as he could be. So he could possibly feel that if we are to get number 9 in, then it's him and potentially Diaz in front of Jota for a position. So he could be looking at very limited game time given on who comes in. I love him, obviously. He scores goals. He's a wholehearted player. He just has this habit of going into challenges where he gets himself injured. So
it's 2 seasons in a row where someone's fell on top of him and he's got injured.
Yeah.
It's quite unlucky, really, isn't it?
It's once would be unlucky, twos, yeah.
It's 3 his fault.
Three becomes decision-making process, doesn't it? I would say
pulling lads on top of him while he's running through on goal.
Yeah. If he's got a chance to go anywhere where he'd be a starter in a World Cup year, then it'd be probably sensible for him to do it. But I prefer not to see him go because there's always a use for him.
I think I'd just like him to be our 4th best attacker. Like, if you tell me he's our 4th best attacker, he's going to start lots of sort of the second tier games, I'd be delighted with that. I almost think that my view on him has sort of changed over the last couple of months in terms of I would quite happily have, after the PSG games, I would quite happily have just gone, no, thanks. It's been nice, but I just don't see how he influence a big game, but that was partly because he was being picked to play in a game that in an ideal world he wouldn't play in the first place. And it I thought he made our lives quite hard in both of those PSG games, just in terms of him, like the away game, his legs just couldn't get him where he needed to be and where his teammates wanted him to be. The first leg we tried to play out over the top 3-4 times, and Nunez might not necessarily have done anything, but he would have got to the ball in a way that Jota didn't, and the ball just kept coming back. And one of the reasons we were, Alisson's making as many saves as he had to is we just couldn't keep the ball up front. And in that kind of game, you can't not do that.
That's where fully functioning lungs are useful.
Yeah, exactly. but if there's a situation where he's coming on for the last 20 minutes to press really aggressively and someone's ran the centre-backs into the ground, he's maybe there to take a chance in a game at that level, that's great. That's almost what I think he should be. I've probably said for quite a while now that it's really hard for me to pick a team where I would go, well, I'm starting Jota today, but he can probably still start 25, 30 games a season, and you've got to get the right man ahead of him, and that's fine. And I think it might be quite hard to do that, and that's the only reason I have a sort of problem with him, is that I have an idea that I want him to play a specific role, and I worry that the next role up we might end up not having, and that's my only area of concern with him, really.
Phil, Elliott to Brighton. I think we started off with Quansah makes a ton of sense for everyone as soon as it comes through. That shape that they do still play, which is that sort of two men up through the middle, but both of them drop deep, interchange, take the time. It was similar to the one that we were actually playing in pre-season last season, where I thought that Elliott looked at times absolute mustard. The idea of Elliott being able to look at wide options like Matoma, Minter, even a Dringer, being able to use their pace and all of that sort of stuff, whilst also being able to press intelligently. I can see exactly how Brighton could conclude that this fella could be worth 40 million quid for them.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton's whole thing, you mentioned Van Hecker before, and you said you weren't quite sure how good he was at defending. Well, that's basically because Brighton's whole business model is buy attackers, sell attackers for lots of money. So we'll just do loads of attacking and we'll see what happens. And I feel like that could be absolutely perfect for Elliott in terms of how he plays as a footballer, how he... he's been really good at... I think he's been creatively quite good in terms of getting on the ball and making things happen. The whole Brighton thing should be pretty perfect for him. So
you could see him and Gruder just working brilliantly together.
They're just a good footballing side, and I think it would work for them.
They massively missed Tariq Lamptey when he was out injured, Brighton. And I can see some similarities between the way he plays and the way Harvey Elliott plays. And I think Elliott is a great player for Brighton. If they can sign Elliott, they've done well, because you can see where he will fit into that. And I don't think it's a bad move for him either, because I think he'd get consistent minutes, which is what he's not getting with us. Like, yeah, he's coming in, he's doing a job, but he's not getting as many minutes as what he probably wants. And yeah, his family are Liverpool fans, and he's done well for us, but I think you have to make a move in order to become a regular starter, and he will want to do that because he's not getting that here.
I think he has to. I think you look at the beginning of the season, look at pre-season, how well he was playing. You thought he was nailed on to start, and then he goes away with England and gets the foot injury. Yet another England training camp that's destroyed one of our footballers, which is always wonderful. Brighton's perfect for him. It's just the absolute perfect fit. It's the right kind of football inside, because Harvey's problem has been that he can influence games, but he never takes a game by the scruff of the neck. So he doesn't really impose himself on it. He's great for coming on and finding the little spaces, but he needs to be doing it for 90 minutes. He's not going to get a chance to do it for 90 minutes for us. But for Brighton, I think he'd be a nailed on stars. He'd be so good for them, because he's a cracking little footballer. I'd like a buyback clause.
Yeah, I mean, I think the writing was on the wall from when he went from 1,355 Premier League minutes in Klopp's last season to 360 last season. You can't look at 360 minutes and go, that's effectively 4 games.
Yep.
Like, you can't look at that and go, oh yeah, my future's here, because it's not, is it?
Okay. Suspect there may be some movement to a degree on Nunez this week as well. Napoli being mentioned, but other bits and pieces. Be interesting to see where we end up with Chiesa. There's still Tyler Morton, who's excelling at the moment for England under 21s. Doak, Lewis Kumas, all still at the club, and a couple of others as well, but you may end up seeing a bit of movement across the next 2 weeks or so. If you want to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap for all of that and everything that you need on every single player as they come in through the door or are strongly linked to Liverpool, we'll have that for you all the way through the summer. Lots of exciting stuff indeed, and also we do stuff for other teams as well. For instance, I'm about to go into another room right now and talk to Grace and Phil about whether or not Bayern Munich is suddenly deeply uncool. None of the footballers they seem to want to go there all of a sudden, or is it just a one-off where things have not broken their way? That is to come if you do subscribe to the Anfield Wrap, so do consider doing it. In the meantime, thank you very much to Grace, to Phil, Ian, Jordan for looking after the pictures, Andy for looking after the words. This has been the Anfield Wrap this week. Another player on his way in.